This time we're going to look at a Toshiba DVR5. This is a DVD recorder and VCR combo, but this VCR has Super VHS playback capabilities. I'm going to put it through its paces and see what's wrong with it and get it to work. This one's got a few quirks to go along with it. This is a Toshiba DVR5. This is mine. I don't know if I showed you guys this before or not, but if not, I'll show you guys the inside of it. This is one that I consider to be probably one of the best one that I think I have that has a VHS machine as well as a DVD drive. It's pretty impressive, this machine. Unlike the decks that followed it, there's not really any plastic in them, or much plastic. Yeah, these are a composite material here, the guides here. But this is a metal post. On the DVR7, for example, that post is plastic. It's just a really well-built machine. And it will play Super VHS tapes. Check out the DVD drive. It's a completely standalone unit. In case you guys didn't notice, it's a Pioneer drive. It supports DVD-R, DVD-RW, and DVD RAM. So this is essentially a computer drive that sits in this unit, as opposed to drives that were supplied on later model units. I'm going to put this thing through its paces because I really haven't done much with it since I got it. I think I tested it once, but we're going to put this thing through its paces. I was given a bunch of discs that I can just destroy. I got given a whole whack of discs, and well, a lot of these discs I'm going to throw out because, well, looks like they're pre-burned, a lot of these discs. Somebody gave me a whole spindle of discs, but there's a whole bunch of them that they've tried to burn stuff on. These ones are CDs. There are some DVDs in here as well. But the ones that I got, like this one looks like it's tried to be burned on. So does that one. So is that one. So is that one. These all look like somebody's tried to burn on them. But I did get some that aren't burned, but they're pretty scratched up. So we'll use those as sacrificial discs and to try a few things with this machine. Some of these DVDs are pretty scratched up, so I'm just going to use them, try them on this machine and see if it can write to them. Got a Super VHS tape. We'll load this one up. Oh, you know what? Might be too much light shining on here for this to work. Okay, this one's a little more sensitive than the other ones have been, that's for sure. I have to block the light sensors on this one, otherwise it's just too bright in here. This particular machine, unlike the other ones, is different. It's a different system on this one. I'll take a look at this one. Now obviously this transport's going to have rotation sensors under here. It's not using the same system as the other one, but it's still using the optical sensor to trigger loading and unloading. So I'm going to have to shield the actual photo transistors here in the end, otherwise it's not going to run with all the lights on in the shop. I can probably shield it enough just by putting some black tape over top of the optical sensors, just so the stray light doesn't get into them. Here, that's a little better. So if I select the VCR on this, it will play this tape back. I'm going to do a dub over to the DVD. Fortunately for me, this one does not have a dubbing button on it. I don't know whether I can do it from the front panel or not. I might be able to select play and then switch to DVD and hit record. Will that work? Or will it not work? Because if I hit record on the DVD and then switch back to the VCR side, looks like it's now playing. Actually, no, it won't. It's recording from the line input, but yet the VHS is playing on the TV. If I stop it, and I can do this with the remote as well, I'll just stop this. Just want to make sure that my recording recorded. If I switch back to the DVD, did I make a recording? I sure did. I recorded a blank screen. I've never tried dubbing a tape. The other machines I've got, they have a button on it that just says dubbing, but I don't know whether this one does or not. So let's just see whether I was able to make a recording there first of all. So if I select the DVD side and hit play, did I record anything or not? I don't think I did, because I think it was trying to record from the line input, which looks like that's what it was trying to do. I wonder if I press the dubbing button, will this thing automatically dub? Press dubbing, nothing happens. So there's got to be a way to set this thing up to dub from the tape over to, maybe put it in VCR mode and hit the dubbing button. Will it dub? Okay, that looks like that might work. If I put it in VCR mode, confirm dubbing from VCR to DVD. Excellent. Go. Alright, I'm going to let this, okay, there it starts. I'm going to let this tape dub over. This is a Super VHS tape. I just want to see how the quality looks as I dub this onto this DVD-R. Just say I got a bunch of DVD, well, I didn't get a bunch. I got a whole stack of CDRs. Well, this was full. That top section was just garbage discs that were either had stuff recorded on them or they were all scratched up. So I'm going to try this and see how this records on this scratched up disc from this tape onto this machine. I've never used this DVD recorder yet, so I've used it as a playback machine for tapes, but I haven't actually recorded anything on it yet. And I'm able to control it with the remote for Toshiba. It also supports DVD-RW and DVD RAM, so we're going to play around with those discs as well. There's the machine as it's playing back. I do like this Pioneer drive that's in here. That speaks of quality. It's essentially a computer drive that's been installed in this machine. And look at the power supply on this. Beautiful. I mean, the machines that follow this had just a sync. Well, they still had a separate board on it for the power supply, but it was one big board that did everything. This one's got all separate boards. This is the video board for the VCR. There's another board underneath here, which is, you don't know if you can see it or not, but you can probably see the shield of it right down there. There's another board right there. It's all shielded. That's the MPEG processing. And then there's the DVD recorder drive, which is separate. One thing I've really noticed on here while I've been dubbing this is that there has not been any interference from the plasma. Normally the plasma set interferes with VHS and beta machines like you wouldn't believe. No interference. And the top cover's not even on this machine. That shows how well shielded the electronics are on this unit. It's fantastic. It's just there's no interference whatsoever, and the top cover's off. It's a pretty neat machine. I'm going to do a DV dub here in a minute. As soon as this recording's done, I'll do a DV dub from my digital 8 cameras, so I can look at the difference in the quality between a Super VHS and a DV tape. But I would say if you're looking to find a machine to dub your VHS and Super VHS tapes and anything else to DVD, this is probably the machine to try to find, if you can find one, a Toshiba DVR5, because it does everything. It does both Super VHS and VHS, and yes, it's a what they call a quasi QSP playback, right, or SQPB, Super VHS quasi playback. And what that means is it's not going to play Super VHS tapes to the absolute maximum quality that a Super VHS machine would play them back, and that's because it doesn't have some of the noise reduction circuitry on. Resolution wise, it's going to be pretty close, but it doesn't have some of the extra circuits that SVHS machines had, like specialized comb filters and so forth. But it's still going to give you a good quality recording from a Super VHS tape. Certainly better than, well, you couldn't play it on a non-Super VHS machine, so that's kind of a non-starter. But the quality-wise, looking at it here on my screen, it's looking pretty good. I mean, the quality of this image looks pretty darn good. This is a second generation Super VHS tape, because I know that because I've got hi-fi sound dubbed on it. So the original tape was shot on a Panasonic PVS 350, and then I dubbed the tape and threw some music in at the same time as I was dubbing the tape. Alright, I finished the VHS or Super VHS dub. I'm just going to plug in my DV cable. I might as well remove the tape. I'm done with that. And I'll plug this into my camera. Just like that. So I'll hit the play button. I'll turn on the camera first of all. I hit the play button and then record on the... it even shows me the display there. Where's my damn trombone when I need it? Is it waiting for me to push a button on here? I wonder. Push play on here. I've got no video from my DV camera. Why do I not have a picture? Got a picture off the camera. So what is it waiting for me to do? Not waiting for me to do anything. It's not working. I can control the camera from the remote control. I can start it and stop it and stuff. It's not accepting the input from my camera. But no video. Interesting. Well, this is what I get for trying to record onto a disc that's full of scratches. I have a playback that, well, it's not very good. Did not record very well at all from the tape, but then again, I wasn't expecting much. This is the shape of the discs that I got given. You know, someone was giving away a whole stack of discs, and well, most of them were like that. It's a good thing I didn't have to go far to get them. I tried to play the recording back, and results were dismal. I haven't been able to figure out why this thing won't record from my DV camera either. Just maybe doesn't like this specific model of camera. I should try a different one, but it recognizes the camera. I can control the camera over the FireWire from the remote control. I can play it and I can stop it and rewind it and fast forward it, but I'm not getting any video from it. So it may be that this recorder just doesn't recognize the specific format that's coming off this camera for whatever reason. So as you can see, this first disc I tried to record to was very badly scratched. This is how I got it. As I mentioned, I was given a stack of CDs and DVDs that someone was giving away. Well, this is why they were giving them away, because there was a bunch of them that were just badly scratched. Some people just don't know how to look after media, I guess. The second one, here it is. It's not quite as bad, but it's still got a fair number of scratches. Let's just see what happens when I made these recordings on both of these discs. Let's just see how the scratches affect them. Now, scratches don't affect discs so much once they've been recorded, but when they are not recorded, the scratches can have serious impacts on the playback. Let's take a look at these two discs. I mean, these are garbage anyway, right? I got out of all these discs I got, several of them were kind of scratched. So I really don't have much use for these other than as test discs, because obviously I'm not recording anything on there that has any value whatsoever, just for testing. But let's just try these discs out and see. I don't know why this thing's also not responding to my camera. I'm going to try a different camera and see whether the DV input works off of a different camera, because I can control the camera from it, but I don't get a picture. But let's just close this up and we'll take a look at the playback on this scratch disc that was recorded with all those scratches on it, and we'll see how it affects the picture, because it definitely does affect the picture. So here's the recording made off of the SVHS tape. I'm just going to skip ahead one track because I know that the problem started about 10 minutes or so in, when those scratches became apparent. And well, that's the effect of the scratches. Pretty dramatic. It's not even going to play. Go back a little bit if I can. Can I skip backwards? See, I got no error or anything while I was making the recording. Everything looked fine. But the scratches are so bad that on playback, there's just nothing there. Again, the disc just won't play. even at this point, it's pretty rough, just from all the errors caused by the scratches in the disc. Now, had the disc been recorded before the disc was scratched up, it probably would play okay. Now, I'll just swap the disc over for the one that had slightly less scratches, but was still kind of beat up. So here's the second disc. If I hit my skip forward to that 10-minute point, no problem whatsoever. 20 minutes in. This does look a bit like it's in strobing, and that's because I had the strobe mode, or I had the really low lux. I think I had the really low lux turned on the camera. That's why it looks like a very slow frame rate. That was a PVS 350, and it had the 1 lux mode, and there was a button that you pushed, and what it did is it made everything go look like it was in slow motion. It went to a very, very slow shutter to try to get better gain, and well, that's what the result was. We'll skip ahead to the 30-minute point. You see this disc is playing just fine. Even with the small scratches on it, just the way that the scratches were, this is the laser disc portion of that tape, which was recorded off lasers. Okay, now some of the scratches along the edge of the disc here, further out, are affecting playback on this portion. As you can see, this disc has some pretty bad scratches in it too, and you can see the area is darker because it actually hasn't been recorded. The scratches obscure the laser, which then the laser can't burn. And even though there are some scratches here, I guess there's enough error correction. The scratches were not too deep, although there's a few of them like out at the edge here. That's probably what caused that last segment to fail, was these bad scratches. Just like that big one there was affecting this disc to the point where it couldn't record at all, and I guess some of these other ones here. But anyway, that's what, don't treat your media like crap, at least until you've recorded it. Once it's recorded, you can scratch it all you want and it will generally play pretty good, until it won't. So in other words, don't scratch your media. Another disc format that a lot of people don't even remember, and many don't even know it existed, DVD RAM. This is a 4.7 gig DVD RAM disc. They also came in double-sided versions that you could flip over and double the capacity. And they came in both cartridge and cartridgeless formats. The Panasonic DVD recorders could accept the cartridge discs, and the cartridge disc, of course, protected the disc. It had a shutter that opened and kept the disc protected. You could remove the disc from the cartridge if you needed to use it in a drive that didn't support the cartridge. Panasonic machines all supported cartridge loading. I've got 3 of them, 2 DMR E20s and a DMR EH50, I believe. They all support cartridge. They support RAM discs. This one supports RAM discs. I can play RAM discs and record RAM discs in my computer drive. It's an LG drive that's in that, so it supports DVD RAM as well. And many companies that only supported the DVD-RW and R format also supported DVD RAM, but not all of them. But this was part of the companies that developed the DVD-R and -RW also developed DVD RAM. If we look at the disc, you will notice something different about this disc, and that is all these little hard-coded sectors, as you can see. And that's what this is. These are permanently encoded on the disc. This tells the drive where it is. It uses them as index, just like the sectors on a hard drive or the sectors on a floppy drive. In case of a floppy drive or a hard drive, they're called soft sector. Well, floppy drive, soft sector. Hard drive is the sectors themselves are recorded when the disc is formatted, but they're not permanently etched into the surface. But in this case, they are. These are permanently etched in as part of the disc during the manufacturing process. That's so that the optical drive knows where it is and it can pick any sector at random. Hence the term random access. That gives these discs an advantage of other optical formats. For example, if you've got on a DVD plus RW or dash RW, if you've got 5 recordings of an hour long, or however many you've got on the disc, and you delete the second and the fourth, you can't reuse that space unless you delete the last track. And the same thing applied to CD RW. You could always delete the last session and it would free up that space that could be reused, but you couldn't delete an earlier session and free up the space unless you erase the entire disc. With DVD RAM, that's not the case. If I've got 5 one-hour recordings on a disc, obviously I'd have to use a low bit rate for that, but if I had 5 one-hour recordings on a disc, I could delete number 3 and it would free up an hour. I could delete number 1 and it would free up another hour that I could use. And I could use those two together. If I had 5 one-hour recordings on a disc, say recorded in the EP speed, which was 6 hours, if I deleted tracks 1 and 3, that gave me 2 hours that I could use, that I could record another like a complete 2-hour show on there, and it would fill the empty portions of the disc, just like a hard drive. Let's take a look at what's on this old disc. So this disc, I haven't watched this disc in years. This was a benefit concert that was put on. This was for aid for the 2004 tsunami in Sri Lanka. So a bunch of artists in Canada put on a concert benefit, and this was broadcast on CTV. I just happened to record, I think it was on when I got home from work, and I popped the disc in and started recording it. So I didn't get the whole thing. I missed the opening act, which was the Bare Naked Ladies. But this gives you an idea of the longevity of this optical media. This is like almost 20 years ago that this was recorded. And it plays perfect today. This is what a lot of people that had these recorders used to use them for back in the early 2000s. This is before we had PVRs or the DVR with the hard drive based recorder for your cable service or satellite service. Satellite TV had them, right? They had PVRs a little earlier than the cable companies, but anyway, a lot of people would use DVD RAM to time shift because it had the ability to record and play at the same time. In other words, I could be recording a show. I could start a show up on the timer and then get home while the show was still on and start playing it back from the beginning, just like a hard drive, because of the data transfer rate was so high. 22 megabits on the Type 2 and 33 on the Type 3 discs. But even the Type 1 discs could record and play at 11 megabits, which was more than adequate for time shifting. But most of them were the Type 2 discs, 22 megabits recording speed. So if you were even at the fastest XP speed, it's writing at 10 and reading at 10 at the same time. For an optical drive, that's pretty substantial to be able to read and write at 22 to 33 megabits at the same time. Anyway, that's a quick demo of a DVD RAM disc that was recorded almost 20 years ago. Alright, I just want to check something out here, because when I tried to plug my digital 8 camera in, it would not recognize the camera, and I'm just wondering whether it's just a compatibility between that specific model. So I've got my little mini DV camera. This is actually an HDV camera, but I've got it set for DV mode now. Let me just plug in the FireWire here. Plug the FireWire in. Am I going to get a picture? And I do. Complete with all that echo. Oh, this should be pretty cool. Such a long delay on this. Ooh. Feedback. So the DV input does work. I wonder why it didn't work off that digital 8 camera. Let's try a different one. Right, let's just plug it into my digital 8 camera. This is the one that wasn't working on last night. Let's see if it's working now. I'm just wondering if maybe it was some debris that had gotten into the DV connector. And just plugging the kit. Okay. I think that answers that question. Now I can try recording that fish tape directly onto DVD using the DV connection, and we can take a look at the picture quality off of that one. I'm going to record this onto a DVD-RW disc. I'll just hit the play button on the camera and hit the record button on the recorder. What? Cannot record. Why can I not record? That is interesting. Never seen that message before. Of course I can't record because I haven't erased what's on this disc yet. What did I have on this disc? I had some test stuff that I recorded on the other machine. Probably the same footage. Yeah, that might help why. What's on this disc? I think it's the same thing. Go to the, this would have been recorded on that machine that I was testing the other day, and I just hadn't bothered to erase it. Here's something I just learned about this machine. This is a DVD-RW disc, but when I tried to unfinalize it, the unfinalized was grayed out. I could not unfinalize the disc in this drive because this is not the drive that finalized the disc. I actually had to go put it into my DVR7 because that is the type of machine. It was the other, what was it, the 520 I worked on the other day. It was that machine that finalized it, which has the same type of drive as the DVR7. So I actually had to go and unfinalize the disc in that drive. Let's see if I can record on it now. It's telling me it's an incorrect disc. Now it won't even recognize the disc. What's going on here? So the only option it's giving me is to reformat the disc. This is just a test disc anyway, so let's proceed with the reformat. But it just, no disc error. Why is it giving me a disc error? That is very strange. Maybe this drive has a problem. That's always a possibility, I guess. Let's go back down to disc setup again. I know the disc works because yeah, it's in video format. You see, everything else is grayed out. Format disc. Something's up with this machine. That is very strange. I'm starting to think that this drive has a problem. Maybe we'll pop it apart. It's certainly not behaving properly for the rewritable discs. A fair bit of disassembly is required to remove the drive. You gotta pop the front panel off and unplug the firewire, or yeah, the firewire cable, because it's all part of the same bracket. Then the drive pops out. The drive is just plugged in here and here. There's a power connector and a data connector. Now the drive is out. Now I can open up the drive. I want to see whether the laser is dirty on it. I mean, the laser could be weak. That could be the problem. We won't know until I try that, but the fact that it's not working with DVD-RW discs properly is a good indication that either the laser itself is a bit weak or it's dirty. Oh well, I guess you guys get to see the inside of one of these drives. I hadn't planned on that, but that's the deck of cards that we've been dealt. Let's see if I can get this thing to record onto the DVD-RW anyway. We'll start here. Did a good job of sealing this up. Okay, there's the bottom cover off. We'll clean it. Get a Q-tip with some isopropyl on it. We'll just clear the top of the lens here. Alright, I'll try reassembling and just see whether it's made any difference.
Plug in the ribbon cable and the firewire cable at the back. And then the drive can drop back in place. Kind of awkward to get this in. It has to go below this. This tab has to go below the circuit board for the power supply because it screws down to it. So it's kind of a tight fit. Kind of like that. Not quite, but we're getting there. There we go. All right, now that I can put the other screws back in to hold the drive back in place. Got it on. All right, now let's just power it up again and see whether it'll read that disc. And I'm getting the same message, an incorrect disc. That is very bizarre. Even if I try to reformat it, I'm getting disk error C310. I wonder what that's all about. I put another brand new disc in and I'm getting the same error. I'm just going to try putting the other disc back in. I finalized it again in the other machine. Let's just see if it will read it this time. Otherwise, I'll have to say that this drive has got a problem and it's not able to write to DVD-RW and probably is going to have trouble writing to DVD-RAM. I'm not going to test it on one because I don't want to burn up a disc. Because sometimes when these drives go bad, they'll actually mess up a disk and then you can't use it in another machine. See, now it's able to read. It's able to read this one. But when I had it in unfinalized, I couldn't read it. It just... Now, maybe because this was formatted in a different machine. Maybe that's the problem. But when I tried to reformat it, it wouldn't format. This disk is blank, but it has been used before. And maybe that's the reason, is that this wants to see a virgin disk that's never been formatted in another machine. I took the disk back in the house and I formatted it into VR mode. Let's just see whether I can get into setup on here and format it again. Where am I here? Initially record, wrong button. System setup. Right now it should be in VR mode. I'm going to format it into DVD video and see whether it will let me do it. Okay, now that's interesting. So the disk had been erased, had been unfinalized in my other machine, but it had not been formatted. So I just went and I reformatted it as a VR mode as opposed to a video mode. And now this machine's recognizing it. So that's interesting. It seems to have issues dealing with disks that were in different formats. Of course, we want to put it in video mode to make the disc compatible with other DVD players. Formatting is complete. So let's try making a recording now. Press enter, it says. Let's that's got this playing. We'll rewind this tape. I'm just going to record this tape. See if it will record. That's interesting. Who would have thought? You know, you would think a DVD-RW is a DVD-RW, but again, some of these machines are really quite picky as to what they do. If I press enter on here, it should start playing the tape, and then if I hit record on the remote, as soon as the tape starts. There we go. Okay, let's let this record and see how it turns out. We've learned something new. I didn't know that, because all my other machines, I can take a disc from one. I can have a disc formatted on my Toshiba, put it into my Panasonic. No problem. Vice versa. I can record something. I can format a disc on my Panasonic, put it in my other Toshiba. No problem. But this one here appears to have a, well, if it's freshly formatted, as we saw, it works fine. But for a disc that had been written to and unfinalized on another machine, forget it, right? When I took this disc and unfinalized it, this deck would not recognize it. And likewise with the disc that's in here now. It had been a disc that had been recorded on, unfinalized, and had the recording erased that was on it, but it still wouldn't recognize it. It couldn't even format it. But I went back and reformatted it into a different mode, into VR, video recording mode, as opposed to DVD video mode. Then this machine recognized it and let me format it back into DVD video mode. Go figure. Okay, once the tape is done, go into setup. I think it's under systems. It's under system setup, disk setup. And then I can go down to finalize. This should finalize this DVD-RW for playback on all others. So I guess the only real fault with this machine, when it wouldn't recognize the DV input, might have been some debris that got into the connection. That's what I'm thinking. Finalizing complete, press enter. And there's the recording playing back, recorded through the DV input. Okay, I'm just going to unfinalize this disc now. Go back into, it's under setup. I think it's under setup. System setup. No, why is disk setup not showing up here? Interesting. Like, will it not let me unfinalize this disk? Other. Automatic. What's going on? So I should see disk setup in here to let me unfinalize the disk, unless I'm looking in the wrong place. I have no idea at this point what's going on with this machine, because it recorded it, it finalized it, but now it won't let me unfinalize it. But I could take the disc in the house, put it in my other machine, and unfinalize it, no problem. This has got quirks. That's interesting, because it should be, disk setup is grayed out. I'm going to try to reformat this disc in this unit. Processing, please wait. Well, I can't undo finalization. Will it let me format it? Or is it going to fail on me? Well, let me reformat the disk, but it won't let me unfinalize it. Isn't that strange? Okay, anyway, I'm done on this one. This is my machine. I got it given to me a while back. I haven't really used it much, other than when I've had the odd SVHS tape to dump an SVHS tape over to DVD quickly. I've just grabbed this machine and used it, and it's worked fine for that. Anyway, at least you see what the inside of one of these machines look like. I think they're pretty good. Toshiba DVR5 is the model number of this one. It's doing its thing now, as you'll see the disc stop and start momentarily, I'm sure. You can see the disc spinning here. Still showing as reformatting. Anyway, it's a little different than what I'm used to with my other Toshiba, at least as far as the menu goes. It says reformatting complete. Press enter. So it's ready to go to record on this disc again. But I'm going to end this one now, because this machine appears to be working okay, although it has its own few little quirks in it for sure. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.